Hello and welcome. I am Exit Light and this is my channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about a very strange and intriguing missing persons case. This case first gained attention because it is widely considered the first case to come about in the age of social media, as Facebook had just been launched. Because it was the first case come about in the age of social media, there have been several keyboard detectives at work on this case for some time. You may have heard about this case, and some of you may have not. Those detectives, keyboard detectives, have come up with some interesting ideas as to what happened to this woman. Some of them seem logical. Some of them are pretty far out there. I'm going to give you the facts of the case and let you decide what you think happened in the disappearance of Maura Murray. Maura disappeared after crashing her car into a snowbank in the darkness of a cold night on the evening of February 9th, 2004, in the Kansas region of New Hampshire. When police inspected her car, they found an empty beer bottle, red stains that appeared to be red wine, and a damaged box of Franzia wine on the rear seat. Maura, however, was not there, and she has not been seen again. Maura Murray was a nursing student at UMass, and she also had a part-time job with campus security to help pay for her classes. On the evening of February 5th, Murray spoke on the phone with her older sister Kathleen while she was on duty at her campus security job. The two sisters discussed Kathleen's rocky relationship with her fiancé. And around 10:30 p.m., while she was still on her shift, it was reported that Murray began to break down in tears. When her supervisor arrived, she said that Murray was, quote unquote, just completely zoned out, no reaction at all. She was unresponsive. The supervisor escorted Murray back to her dorm room about 1:20 a.m., and when she was asked what was wrong, Murray simply said two words: "My sister." What that conversation was about was not revealed until 2017, when Kathleen publicly explained the conversation. Kathleen, who is a recovering alcoholic, had been discharged from a rehabilitation clinic that evening, and on their way home, her fiancé had taken her to a liquor store, which caused her to have an emotional breakdown. On Saturday, February 7th, Murray's father, Fred, arrived in Amherst. He told investigators that he and Murray went car shopping that afternoon and later went to dinner with a friend of his daughter's. Murray then dropped her father off at his hotel room and borrowed his Toyota Corolla, and she returned to campus to attend a dorm party. Maura Murray arrived at the party at 10:30 p.m. At 2:30 a.m. on Sunday, February 8th, she left that party, and at 3:30 in the morning, she was on her way to her father's hotel when she got in a car accident, hit a guardrail on Route 9 in Hadley, and she caused $10,000 worth of damage to her father's car. The police officer who responded to the accident wrote an accident report, but apparently didn't do any kind of field sobriety test. Murray was then driven to her father's motel, and she stayed in his room for the rest of the morning. It's also unusual that at that time of the morning, getting in a car accident, that they didn't do any kind of a field sobriety test on her. So, anyway, I'll keep going. Later, Sunday morning, Fred Murray learned that the damage to his vehicle was going to be covered by his auto insurance, so he rented a car. He dropped Murray off at her school, and then he left for Connecticut. At 11:30 that night, Fred called Maura to remind her to pick up the accident forms from the DMV. They agreed to talk again on Monday night to discuss the forms and to fill out the insurance claims over the phone. After midnight on Monday, February 9th, Murray used her personal computer to search MapQuest for directions to the Berkshires and Burlington, Vermont. Now, you have to keep in mind that everything didn't come with GPS in 2004. So what you did was go to MapQuest, put in your destination, and it would give you directions. You would print it off, and then you would follow those directions to get to where you were going. The first reported contact Murray had with anyone on February 9th was at 1 p.m. when she emailed her boyfriend. Now, part of this story involves the fact that Maura Murray was dating two people, her boyfriend, and also the track coach for UMass. While it doesn't really seem relevant, it will come up later in some people's theories of what happened, and we will talk about that later. But the email she left for her boyfriend said, "I got your messages, but honestly, I don't feel like talking to much of anyone. I promise to call today, though." And that was it. Then she made a phone call inquiring about renting a condominium in the same Bartlett, New Hampshire condo association that her family had vacationed at in the past. The telephone records indicate that that call lasted for 3 minutes. The owner did not rent the condo to Murray. At 1:13 p.m., Murray called a fellow nursing student for reasons which are unknown. And again, going back to that police investigation, I can't understand why the reasons are unknown. At 1:24 p.m., Murray emailed her work supervisor at the nursing school facility, and she told her that she would be out of town for a week due to a death in her family. No one had actually died, but she would not be the first person to use that excuse to get out of school or work. During that phone call, she also said that she would contact them when she returned. At 2:05 p.m., Murray called a number which provides recorded information about booking hotels in Stowe, Vermont. That call lasted approximately 5 minutes. At 2:18 p.m., she telephoned her boyfriend and left a voice message promising that they would talk later. This call ended after 1 minute. In her car, Murray packed clothing, toiletries, her college textbooks, and birth control pills. Now, in a strange twist to the story, when her room was searched later, the campus police found that most of Maura's belongings were packed in boxes, and even the art had been removed from her walls. It's not clear whether she had packed them that day, but police at the time asserted that she had packed somewhere between Sunday night and Monday morning, and I'm not really sure why they came to that conclusion. Although I do believe I read that maybe a neighbor had heard some bumping around that time. On top of the boxes was a printed email to Murray's boyfriend indicating that they were having trouble in their relationship. At around 3:30 p.m., she drove off the campus in her black 1996 Saturn sedan. Classes at the university had been canceled that day because there was a snowstorm. At 3:40 p.m., Maura emptied her bank account from an ATM and she took out $280. Closed circuit footage shows that she was alone. Then she went to a nearby liquor store and she purchased about $40 worth of alcohol, including Bailey's Irish Cream, Kahlua, vodka, and that box of Frenzia wine. Security footage again shows that she was alone at the liquor store. At some point in the day, she also picked up accident report forms from the Massachusetts DMV. Then she left Amherst at around 3:50 p.m., presumably via Interstate 91 North. She called to check her voicemail at 4:37 p.m., and that is the last recorded use of her cell phone. To date, there is no indication that she informed anyone of her destination or even any evidence of the fact that she had chosen a destination. Then, sometime after 7 p.m., a Woodsville, New Hampshire resident heard a very loud thump outside of her house. She looked out of her window and she could see a car up against the snowbank along Route 112. The car was pointing west on the eastbound side of the road. She telephoned the Grafton County Sheriff's Department about 7:27 to report the accident, and according to the 911 log, the woman claimed to have seen a man smoking a cigarette in the car. However, she later stated that she had not seen a man or any person smoking a cigarette, but she had said that she saw what appeared to be a red light glowing from inside the car, which could potentially be from a cell phone. At about that very same time, another neighbor saw the car as well, and they saw someone walking around the vehicle. She witnessed a third neighbor pull up alongside the vehicle. That neighbor was driving a school bus and he was returning home. He noticed that the young woman was not bleeding or visibly injured, but she was very cold and shivering. He offered her to telephone for help. She asked him not to call the police. One police report says that she pleaded with him to not call the police, and she told him that she had already called AAA. However, AAA has no record of any such phone call. Now, apparently there really isn't much, or wasn't at the time, much cell phone service there, so knowing that, the bus driver went home and he too called the police, and his phone call was received by the Sheriff's Department at 7:43 p.m. He was not able to see Murray's call while he made the phone call, but he did notice that several cars were passing on the road before the police arrived. Then another local resident driving home from work claims that she passed by the scene at around 7:37, and she saw a police SUV parked face to face with Murray's car. She pulled over for a second, and there was nobody there, neither inside or outside of the cars, and she continued to drive home. This witness claims contradicts the official police log, which says that the Haverhill police didn't arrive for another 9 minutes. So according to the official police log, an officer arrived at 7:46 p.m. and he found the second generation Saturn S Series car that Murray had been driving. No one was inside or around the car. In the police report, it states that the car had impacted a tree on the driver's side of the vehicle, which severely damaged the left headlight and had pushed the car's radiator into the fan, which rendered the car inoperable. The car's windshield was also cracked on the driver's side, and both airbags had been deployed. The car was locked. Inside and outside the car, he found red stains that looked to be from red wine. Inside the car, the officer found an empty beer bottle, the damaged box of Franzia wine on the rear seat. He also found a AAA card issued to Maura, blank accident report forms, gloves, CDs, makeup, diamond jewelry, 2 sets of MapQuest driving directions to Vermont, Maura's favorite stuffed animal, and a Not Without Peril book which was about mountain climbing in the White Mountains. What was missing from all of this were Maura's debit cards, her credit cards, her cell phone, and none of those have ever been located or even used since she disappeared. Later on in the investigation, the police also reported that some of the bottles of the alcohol that she had purchased were also missing. Journalist Joe McGee, writing for Quincy, Massachusetts Patriot Ledger, surmised this accident as, at a hairpin turn, she went off the road. Her car hit a tree. At that point, a person came along who was driving a bus. It was a neighbor. He asked her if she needed help. She refused. About 10 minutes later, police showed up to the scene, and Maura Murray was gone. The responding officer and the bus driver drove around the area for some time looking for Maura. Just before 8 p.m., the EMS and a fire truck arrived to clear up the scene. By 8:49 p.m., Maura's car had been towed to a local garage. At 9:30 p.m., the responding officer left. Now here's another strange twist in this story. There was a rag found, which was believed to have been part of Maura's emergency roadside kit. And it was discovered stuffed into the Saturn's muffler pipe. In the beginning of this investigation, authorities would strictly refer to Murray's disappearance as missing. At 12 p.m. the next day, almost 24 hours after she was last confirmed seen. At 12:36 the following day, February 10th, a Be on the Lookout report for Murray was issued. She was reported as wearing a dark coat, jeans, and a black backpack. At 5 p.m., Maura's older sister contacted her father to tell him of the situation. He then contacted the Haverhill Police Department and was told that if Murray was not reported safe by the following morning, the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department would start a search. At 5:17 p.m., Murray was first referred to as missing by the Haverhill Police Department. On February 11th, Murray's father, Fred, arrived before dawn in Haverhill. At 8 a.m., the New Hampshire Fish and Game, the Murrays, and some other people began to search. A police dog tracked the scent of one of Murray's gloves 100 yards east from where the vehicle had been discovered. On the road, there were no footprints that went into the snow. So she apparently walked down the road. But then the police dogs lost her scent. To the police, this suggested that she left the area in another car. At 5 p.m., Murray's boyfriend and his parents arrived in Haverhill. He was interrogated in private and then was joined by his parents for questioning. At 7 p.m., the police said that they believed that Murray had come to the area to either run away or commit suicide. Her family believes that this was unlikely. Now, here's a strange twist to this story again. Maura's boyfriend had turned off his cell phone during his flight to Haverhill. At some point during this flight, he received a voicemail that he believes was the sound of Murray sobbing. The call was traced to a calling card issued to the American Red Cross. Now, if you've never had to use the American Red Cross, that's a good thing. I have. And what happens when they come to the scene of whatever is going on with you. In my case, it was a fire. They find out, do you need a place to stay? Do you need food? Do you need medication? Do you need cash? Do you have a way to call somebody? And if not, they will issue you a calling card so that you can call family, friends, whichever, long distance, and not have to pay for that call. Now, keep in mind, it was common to have a home phone at this time. So that is the only way that you get an American Red Cross card, is that you have been involved with a situation that the American Red Cross is also involved in. On February 12th, Fred and Maura's boyfriend held an evening press conference in Bethlehem, New Hampshire, and the next day, the first press coverage was published. At 3:05 p.m., the police reported that Murray might be headed to the Kankamugus Highway. If I butchered that, I'm very sorry. And she was listed as endangered and possibly suicidal. The police report also stated that Murray was intoxicated at the crash site, although there was no evidence showing that this was the case, and the bus driver who had stopped and spoken to her said that she in no way appeared to be impaired. The Haverhill police chief said that our concern is that she's upset or suicidal. So keep in mind that that's how they're coming at this situation. They're not coming at this situation as it's possible that she was kidnapped, even though they know that the dog that they used had picked up her scent and then it simply vanished into thin air, and their theory was that she had been picked up by another car. They were leaning on she was drunk, depressed, suicidal, and really just considering her to be not much more than, she'll pop up at some point, which is unfortunately, looking back, was not the way to handle that case. A week after Maura disappeared, her father, Fred, and her boyfriend were interviewed by CNN, and Murray's family expanded the search into Vermont. They were dismayed that the authorities there had not even been informed of her disappearance, considering that that was also one of the places that she had thought about going to. Although missing person cases are normally handled by local and state police, the FBI joined the investigation 10 days after she disappeared. The FBI interviewed family from Massachusetts, and the Haverhill Police Department chief announced that the search was now nationwide. 10 days after she disappeared, the New Hampshire Fish and Game conducted a second ground and air search using a helicopter with thermal imaging cameras. Tracking dogs and cadaver dogs were also used. By the end of February, the police returned the items that were found in Murray's car to her family. On March 2nd, the family checked out of their hotel, exhausted from the search, although Fred Murray returned nearly every weekend to continue his searching. In April, the Haverhill police informed Fred that he couldn't continue his searching. The reason for this? There were complaints of him trespassing on private property. So let that sink in for a moment. This man is searching for his daughter. Likely, by this time, if he's searching in the woods on people's property, He's afraid that he will find her corpse. And the property owners were concerned because he was doing it on their private property. I can't even wrap my brain around that. Also, in March of 2004, another young woman disappeared. Her name was Brianna Maitland, and she disappeared in Montgomery, Vermont, which was just 66 miles away from where Maura was last seen. This caused people to believe that the two could be connected and that there was possibly a serial killer, but the police denied that there was any connection between the two. 2 times, in April and again in June, the New Hampshire and Vermont police dismissed any connection between Murray's case and Maitland's case. In a press release, they stated that they believed Maura was headed for an unknown destination and may have accepted a ride in order to continue to that location, adding that they had discovered no evidence that a crime had been committed, and again dismissed the possibility of a serial killer being involved. So I suppose that what they were suggesting is perhaps maybe she hitchhiked and was picked up by somebody, and that's why her scent disappeared. So here's another twist, and we will get back to that and revisit this a little bit later as well. In late 2004, a man gave Fred Murray a rusty, stained knife that he said belonged to the man's brother, who lived less than a mile from where Maura was last seen. He told him that his brother had been acting funny around the time of Maura's disappearance, and then he told him that he and his girlfriend killed Maura. A few days after the man gave the knife to Fred, the man's brother had his car scrapped. In late 2005, Fred filed a suit against several law enforcement agencies with the aim of being able to see the files on the case. On November 1st, 2005, on a message board called Not Without Peril, which was dedicated to the discussion of Maura's disappearance, a username, Tom Davies, logged in and claimed to have seen a black backpack behind a restroom around 30 miles from Woodsville. As I said earlier, Maura was known to be carrying a black backpack. The senior assistant attorney general stated that the law enforcement was, quote unquote, aware of the backpack, but they did not disclose whether it had been taken for forensic testing. In October of 2006, another strange twist happens. Volunteers led a 2-day search within a few miles of where Maura Murray's car was found. In the closet of an A-frame house, about 1 mile from the crash site, cadaver dogs went, quote-unquote, bonkers, possibly identifying the presence of human remains. The twist? This house had formerly been the home of the man implicated by his brother who had given Fred Murray the rusty knife back in 2004. A sample of the carpet from the home was sent to the New Hampshire State Police, but the results were never released to the public. Maura Murray's case was one of the many cited by proponents of a statewide cold case unit for New Hampshire in 2009. Her case was added to the newly established cold case unit later that year. So, what happened to Maura Murray? we're going to talk about a couple of theories. So, was Maura kidnapped? While most amateur and keyboard detectives believe that Maura Murray ran away to start a new life, her father, Fred, believes that she was kidnapped after her car accident. 10 years after her disappearance, he told WMUR, "My initial thought is still what I think. Somebody locally grabbed her who knows the area, knows where to go, knows how to get into some place and out of some place without being seen." And I can't forget that there was a vehicle in front of Maura's crashed car that was apparently a police vehicle, even though the police said that they didn't get there for several more minutes after that. What was that vehicle? Whose car was that? Was there an officer who got there before the official officer got to the scene? Fred Murray is not the only person who believes that she was kidnapped. Many people do. Jean Foley, who was a resident near where Maura crashed her car, told the news station that "I never had the feeling that it was a local person. I always felt that she was in the wrong place at the wrong time and someone came along." Which, I think the odds of that happening are extraordinarily high. Some internet detectives believe that there was a tandem driver. Maybe somebody was following her, and when she crashed, they came back and got her, and they took her across to the Canadian border to begin this new life. Now, it's not only keyboard detectives who believe this is a possibility. James Renner, who is a true crime author, and I'm going to talk about him several times coming up, he spent the better part of a decade writing about this particular disappearance, and he believes that the involvement of a second driver is likely. While trying to dispel rumors of it being a kidnapping, he wrote, "The only way this could happen was if Maura knew the driver and there was no time wasted for conversation. Enter the tandem driver, who would have been driving ahead of Maura if they were ahead and saw the accident in their rear view and were past Bradley Hill Road. The next place they could turn around was Route 116. It takes approximately 7 minutes to drive to Route 116 and back to the scene of the crash." James Renner believes that she ran away to survive, to protect herself, and, if the police are correct, her baby. Which is where we go back to the fact that Maura had a boyfriend and was dating the track coach at UMass. He goes on to say, "And talk about a motive to remain quiet for 11 years. Can you get anything better than protecting a kid? What wouldn't you do? That's certainly one way to avoid any custody troubles." And I have to just add here that only a woman would cause people to come up with this conclusion. There is zero evidence that Maura Murray was pregnant. In fact, she took her birth control pills with her. So the fact that because she was dating two men at the same time, clearly she must have gotten pregnant, is, in my opinion, ridiculous. That doesn't mean your opinion can't be different. Then in 2016, James Renner, again, by the way, he is the author of a book called True Crime Addict. He claims to have received an email sent by quote-unquote someone from Maura's inner circle, alleging that they spoke to someone in a bar who heard a different version of Maura's disappearance. So keep this in mind. Somebody who talked to somebody in a bar sent this email. Part of the email read, "An Army football game highlight or score came on the TV, and I stopped the conversation to watch. This guy asks me why, and I explain that it's because my dad graduated West Point, and we always went to the games when I was a kid, and I still rooted for the team. He then started talking to me about the missing girl who had gone to West Point and then to UMass. I hadn't heard about it at the time, and he explained to me what I now know is the Maura Murray case. He told me that it was an open secret among people who knew her personally at UMass, that she ran off on her own to get away from an abusive relationship. He said he knew people that knew her and that had been in on the whole thing." So I think we take that for whatever it's worth. I know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody that said this, and I personally wouldn't call that a fact or a clue. And again, I don't think that's something that she wouldn't tell her father, and she also wouldn't pick up the accident reports to take to her father, so it doesn't seem like she was intending to run away. But you can give me your opinion. And again, James Renner claims that he received an email with the subject, "Stop Looking," from Ray Brumau, which is an anagram of Maura Murray. It held some coordinates, and when the coordinates were traced, they led to the north slope of Mount Carrigain to an area called Desolation Trail, which is very spooky. Renner believes that whomever sent the email was intoning that those coordinates are where Maura's body can be found. But rather than check out the area himself, he sent a, quote, team of volunteers, and they went to find the body, and they ended up being turned back because of snow. After that, the hosts of Missing Maura Murray podcast gave the coordinates a shot, but they claimed that someone was stalking them throughout their visit to New Hampshire. So they stopped. On February 8th, 2012, almost 7 years to the day after her disappearance, a video appeared online posted by someone named 112 Dirtbag. For the record, this video appeared on YouTube. Maura had disappeared on Route 112, and her father said some dirtbags may have kidnapped her. This video featured a very creepy guy laughing. And while it was very unsettling to watch, it seems more like this character is giving the BTK guy a run for his money. At least one person who looked into 112 Dirtbag said that he's some weirdo internet troll interested in disappearances in Massachusetts. Apparently they had done some research on him and determined that he is local to Massachusetts, lives a relatively transient lifestyle, is very familiar with the area, and had lived there his entire life. He maintained a number of blogs and posts about several other unsolved disappearances in the Massachusetts area. He was also very active on an online discussion board called Topics, and frequently posted some pretty weird and creepy theories about missing women cases, including secret fertility research clinics, egg harvesting, and how that required the kidnapping of young women. So, did she run off to be alone and to start a new life? Well, why would she get out of her car and start walking if there was a tandem driver who would just come back and pick her up? There were no footprints in any of the surrounding snow to suggest that she had wandered off into the woods, and why would she? Also, why did she deny getting help from the bus driver and lie, saying that she had called AAA when the cell phone connection in that area was so bad? Why did she ask him to not call the police? This case really is a mystery. There's really not just one answer that is easily deduced from the information. So, if you know anything, if you're from that area, or you know anyone from that area, I think that this case really needs solved. I think her family really needs to have the closure they deserve, and that means regardless of what the outcome is. I appreciate you coming and listening to this. If you like this type of content and you would like to support it, please like this video, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to click that bell so that you can be notified of new content when it goes up. And also, I have a Patreon account. I will put the link down there if you're interested. And I will now say good night.